Hey, everybody, welcome to the Enhance Your World show. I am your co host, Chris Alba. Larkin is unable to join us today due to health issues, so we're going to continue on today. Of course, we always want to invite everybody to feel free to comment on the live stream and ask questions and things because you're part of this conversation, and it's so important that we have these deep um, empathetic and compassionate conversations so we can find a safe place within ourselves and within our relations with other humans and the planet. And that's what today's show is really about, talking about how we relate. And, you know, there's many different dimensions as we talk about through all the different teachings of consciousness and all the labels and the predetermined definitions of what things mean. And, I was talking, especially in the spiritual community, there's many teachings, like if you see a hawk, hawks, for example, and there's many teachings that if you Google, what does it mean to see a hawk, doing this, that, or the other, there's going to be some kind of teaching on that, some kind of meaning. And what that does for us is gives us an opportunity to relate to that information if that feels true to us or not. And that's the developing of our intuition. So many people want to teach us or tell us how to listen to our intuition, but they don't teach us how to relate through um, what feels right, what doesn't feel right, what feels off, what doesn't feel complete, what doesn't feel whole. And, creating safe space is the ability for humans to come together and share vulnerably and openly without projecting, without protecting, without shaming or coulding or wouldn't, those types of things, and really listen to where someone's coming from and why they feel a certain way that they do. And then maybe if they're open to suggestions and you feel called to give a suggestion, then give them a couple suggestions to help them move them out of that space. You know, it's hard sometimes to do shadow work because, as I tease on the show a lot, when you put the light of awareness on your shadows, then they turn to something else. They disappear because the shadows don't want to be exposed. And so sometimes our relationships um, are the mirror, as we would say, to help us see things from a different perspective. Whether it's safe or not, that depends on how we're willing to receive it. If we can't hear people because we're too defensive or too prideful or those types of things, or we think we know best because we've walked the path of individuality, so we have a self-awareness that we've come to count on because it's helped us get through the challenging times, right? And when somebody points to something that isn't hasn't been fully integrated or resolved yet, sometimes it can cause triggers. And a trigger isn't a bad thing. Again, how do we relate through the trigger? When you can state that you're triggered, that you're having emotions, and a person doesn't um, shame you for being human, or tells you how you should see things differently or how you should be differently for them because it would make it easier for them. That's partly true. And the other part is if you adapt to make everyone comfortable, then you're not actually being your true self. And same thing if you expect others to um, uh, to adjust to your preferences without being able to adjust to theirs as well. And that's the challenge with relating a lot of times because mentally there's a realm, and we're going to try to relate mentally through words and communication. And we're going to put labels on things, and we're going to create stories and narratives and identities and all those things. And our heart, for example, it doesn't have that. Um, it just feels. So when we grieve, it's not that the person that we're grieving, including the version of ourselves that we were with that person, doesn't necessarily go away. It transmutes into something else. It shows us the depths of life and the adversities of life, of nature. You know, in Druidism, everything is nature. That's part of a lot of these philosophies. Even every human being is nature, and they're expressing their human nature through how they are choosing to be and live in that moment. And if those people are living the way that they are and that challenges you, then there's some self-reflection that needs to be done in how there's some non-acceptance within us for who they are, for how they hurt us or how they challenged us or who they're being. And then the second part is, what part of me either participates in that way or doesn't participate in that way. It's been my experience that when I've chosen to participate in something unconsciously, um, there's some pain that gets pulled up, and and then that gives me an opportunity to look how, on a very maybe a unconscious or subtle level, I was doing that. You know, like not not showing up for myself, not following through with the things that I said I was going to do, whether it was for myself or for other people, because a lot of times it's easier to hold ourselves accountable when it affects other people. The hard part is to hold yourself accountable, even if it only affects you, because it does affect other people, whether you're conscious of it or not, even if you're in acceptance of it, that bad behavior. I know a lot of alcoholics and a lot of addicts that are in acceptance that they are where they are. The hard part is to hold space for them so they can see how they would be a better version of themselves if they didn't become possessed by the spirits, alcohol, right? And I can say that from personal experience, because that's why I don't drink. It's not that I can't control myself. It's that when I have too many drinks, which can happen, the filters of being um, a safe person sometimes can come out because you say things that are stupid, or you allow the animal to come out, you know. And that, when I drank, you know, I always was told you're a very lovable person, and sometimes that love wasn't always appreciated. um, and that was and that was why I allowed myself to walk away from those things, because I didn't want to use that excuse. I'm sorry I did something to hurt you, because I was under the influence of alcohol at a social gathering. And it's easier for me to choose not to partake in that substance than it is to be fully present to the enjoyment of the experience, and not lose myself to the pleasure, to the escape. And that's something that I'm learning more and more about this walk, is the more we try to escape adversity, the more we try to escape ourselves, the more we try to escape challenging circumstances or conversations or those things, the harder it is to live life. And when we're willing to have challenging conversations, we can and will overcome them, because that's within our nature as human beings. Our history has shown that we're able to overcome almost every adversity that's ever been recorded. We've overcome it somehow or some way. And as part of this awakening process, to go to the next level beyond self-awareness and self-actualization is how we relate to one another. You can be self-aware and still be in some sort of delusion. I know in Druidry, there's a lot of work that we do around making sure that we don't lose ourselves to the reality of the here and now, because the stories, the narratives, the perspectives that can sometimes block us from being accountable for our effects, even though they're logical or practical or those types of things, also limit us from truly being a true expression of the divine source, whatever you want to call it. And now getting to our planet, now we can all see with our own physical senses the effects that we're having on this planet, whether it's through plastic, whether it's through fracking, whether it's through the nuclear waste being spilled in the ocean and not being cleaned up, all those different things. We can see it going on. And why is it continuing to go? Why is it continuing to happen? It's because we continue to fund the things that allow it to happen. You know, there was a thing that I was watching the other day, and the guy was talking about the organization of the churches and how much money people have donated to those organizations, and how that money could be allocated to end poverty, how it could be allocated to end homelessness, or how it could fight food inequality, and all these various different human issues that as stewards of the planet we can overcome. We can consciously create over the challenges of everyday life. I live in a region, for example, that isn't tropical. So if I want to have tropical fruits on my land that I grow, I can build a greenhouse and replicate the growing conditions of those tropical plants, and they will survive there as long as the greenhouse stays intact, as long as the humidity stays in relation. It's not going from one extreme to the next. Everything in that greenhouse is going to be protected. And that's what we do with our words and our mindsets and our practices that we live every day. They're glass houses. And there's that saying I remember as a kid, careful throwing rocks at other people's glass houses, because you have one too. And for those of us that have gone through different redirections in our life where that structure didn't hold up to the emotional storms, and the foundations were cracked or shooken, or however you want to look at it. It's a process to rebuild. It's not impossible. In fact, the more we do it, the better we get at it. The more times we have a challenging relationship and learn to overcome it together, the better we get at conflict resolution. Something that I share a lot with, in my level of gratitude with my family. Because we don't see eye to eye. They come from a different perspective than I do. But there's love and respect. And I'm grateful to have gone through the adversity that I ran from for most of my life, rather than having the difficult conversations. So my dad and my mom could see me for who I was and not just as their son. So we could participate together in life. Morning, Mark. Thanks for checking us out. You know, it's pretty fun. You know, my mom went to the nursery the other day and bought plants, and she's like, "Well, I figured you were going to grow them and you were just going to share them with us." So I thought, I would go get some plants. So you haven't done that yet. Thanks, appreciate it. Got them in the ground. Looking forward to what's going to happen with them. But that's how community works. That's how our planet works, right? When we're in harmonious relations with one another, things just grow better. If there's inconsistency, if there's instability, if there's accusations, if there's projections, all that, that is part of the healing process. It's not a fun part of the process. That's why most people avoid it. That's why it takes courage, right? And you can't have courage without rage. And sometimes when we speak up, it's because or lose our temper or raise our voice or act out of character. It's because we're being threatened in a way, we're being challenged in a way. So spirit speaks through us because that's not normally who we are. And then we can drop back, realize that's not who I usually am. That's not who I prefer to be. And then we get back into alignment with that version of ourselves. And that's the hard part about living beyond identity, because if you truly live beyond an identity, you realize that you're capable of everything that any other human has ever done before. Just where do you choose to put your attention and your energy? And if we're here to help each other, if we're here to help the planet, we're here to evolve and raise up and to grow and all those things which are natural laws, whatever labels you want to use, then how are you actually practicing that through the way that you relate to yourself, to each other, the people that can and can't help you, and our planet? Because it's all interconnected. The only thing that divides us is our perceptions and perspectives of how we think it should be, could be, or would be, if only we choose to be it, to become it, to live it, to experience it. And that can be challenging because that's not living by anyone else's map but your own. And when you make a mistake, do you apologize? Do you get curious of how you fell out of alignment? Or are you so quick to judge and dismiss and to run away and to fall into the victim category and to all those different things? It's okay anyway. You just need to be aware. I was working with someone and they said my tendency is to run away. So when I want to run away, remind me why I don't want to run away. And I always do that. And how am I gonna develop trust and understanding and compassion and all those things if I just keep running away from my problems, from my discomforts, from things not working out right away? And that's a great question. When everybody is a multidimensional being and we all vibrate energetically in different mental and emotional states throughout the day, how can we truly be defined? You're a kind, we're kind people until we're not. We're compassionate till we're not. We're a pushover till we're not. We're helpful till we're not. We're happy till we're not. We're sad till we're not. We grieve until we're not. And those are all states of awareness, of just saying, oh, wait, I don't feel that way right now. Cool. I'm not currently grieving right now. I'm excited about the future. Oh my God, what a shift in energy to go from grieving what will no longer be, or could be, or would be, into, okay, now we get the opportunity for a fresh start. A new way of being human, a new way of believing of what it means to be human and our effect. And that's all I've ever tried to do as a enhancer or coach or healer or any of that other stuff. I mean, I'm always told that I'm too soft or this, that, or the other. But you know what? When everybody that's out there is pushing an agenda, and it usually is about so they can go live more in commercial comforts, I'm challenged by that because that's how we got here. If you get the opportunity to travel and you go to foreign countries, you'll get to see it. When the income equality is so bad, you go to a temple, I mean, I was thinking of the water temple the other day in Bali. It was beautiful. All these brand new flowers and ribbons and all this beautifulness in the temple. And then when you left the temple, you went through what, here in the North America, I could kind of, as a visionary thing, like a flea market type situation, where all the people had their little booths of their stuff that they were selling, desperate for money because they were starving. And so they're trying to get you to buy spiritual things because you just left the temple. And it bothered me profoundly. How can there be this level of abundance and resource and a safe place to stay and all this, and the people right outside the gates are suffering and they don't see it? They don't do anything about it. They just allow it to be there because that's just the way it is. I loved going to Bali, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot more about religion than I had hoped to, and people who practice it while pretending their prayers and their worships and their sacrifices and all the things are for the highest good, when they're not looking at their own selves and their own actions and how they're playing into the very thing that they're praying for it to be changed. And it's hard to relate to people when you're telling them what they're doing isn't right or isn't wrong or in the highest good, or those types of things. So I asked a lot of questions when I was there and got a lot of different answers and a lot of different perspectives. But a lot of it came down to, we're just being devoted because we hope somebody's going to change it for us. And we can see that in politics. We can see that in all the things. Oh, so and so is going to fix everything. Okay. We can look in history and see that the authoritarians, the kings, the rulers, the leaders, the different things, they wanted to keep people comfortable enough to not uprise, but not powerful enough that they were a threat. And when we stop dividing ourselves by our knowledge and by our identities of man and woman and our different races and our different practices and our different belief systems and our different ways and all those different things, and come together in our heart as human beings, trying to come together into harmony, into understanding, to compassion, so our future generations have a better chance of being able to experience a good life. Because I can tell you, when we destroy our mother nature, it is going to be we're not going to be able to live a good life. When the air is so polluted that we can't leave our house without an oxygen or air purification machine, when the waters are so poisoned that there's no life in them, when the soil no longer can grow food, what are we gonna, when the pollinators are destroyed and uh, the plants can't be pollinated without manual aid from humans because we've destroyed all of our natural helpers to do so, then it will be too late. And I don't care what artificial, synthetic, processed food, our body doesn't recognize it. And as you can tell over the history of all this stuff, what effect that has on us, whether it's the sugar industry, whether it's the corn industry, whether it's commodities of those various different resources. The reason that people have allergies is because they're allergic to their own nature, because they're less natural than they are synthetic. And I would go to venture to say most people that have allergies that are detoxing from that either have removed all the artificial fragrances from all their materials in their house. They use natural cleaners rather than harsh chemicals. They eat more natural foods than processed foods. And guess what? I don't have allergies anymore. I try to stay as close to the earth as I can because that's our true nature. Yes, I like modern conveniences. I love my car. I love being able to travel. I love doing all these different things. I love being able to do this podcast. This wouldn't be available if it wasn't for our human creative geniuses out there. This stuff's awesome. But it all comes with responsibility. How are we using it? Are we using it to lift other people up? Are we using it to create a platform for ourselves and say why we need to be followed and why we need to be listened to and why what we have to say is more important than someone else's attention? They're just questions. The best thing when you realize that everybody wants to be somebody, you go and work on being a nobody. You realize that you can play a part or you cannot. It's up to you. And what part do you want to play? How do you want to show up each and every day of your life? This is big stuff, man. So many people have so many opportunities and blessings to step into the life that they want, and the only thing that's keeping them from actually living it is stepping into it because they're afraid that it's not going to work out. And until they do step into it, they're right. It's always worked out for me, never the way that I thought it was going to. But everything's led to another thing, and that thing led to another thing, and that thing led to another thing. But isn't that just walking our journey? If we were walking a mile and just one step, one step, one step, one step, one breath, one breath, one breath, one thought, one thought, one thought. It's continuous energy. So why is it so hard for us to relate vulnerably and openly, sharing both our pain story and our pleasure story, because that's our whole authentic truth, not dictating to people how they're supposed to live, how they're supposed to be. Because if that's reversed to you, how do you respond? How do you like it? I think I call that a golden rule. And when you make a mistake, how do you respond? And someone else makes a mistake, do you give them the opportunity to respond, or do you close them down? Do you react and then abandon the relationship because there's a hole in it, rather than working on repair? I'm sure those mega cruise ships and all the different things, they still have to be repaired as they're used. So why do you think that you don't have to spend some time repairing the relationships with yourself and with other people? Shore up those misunderstandings and those missteps. You know, a lot of people want to project Christ consciousness and make it religious, but what if it's just compassion? Because passion's always going to lead us through together. If that doesn't encompass that, for me, it's that simple. It's just compassion. How are we going to move through this together? Oh, we're not? Okay. Well, then I'll have to move through that by myself. Thanks for letting me know that I can't count on you. At this time. Maybe later. I don't know. And if I'm the one that if I can't count on myself because I'm not the one willing to show up, and I want to use my pain story to keep me from reaching for the stars, then I can't be mad at anyone else but myself. Miracles have happened for me in my life because I believed. And then they usually came with a lesson of where I needed to grow, because a lot of times when it came easy, I didn't appreciate it. I wasn't grateful for it. That's why I teach the gauge principles. And the more I've been able to be grateful for the pain that I experience and being able to overcome it, the more pleasure that I can experience without trying to reach for it. It's the greatest paradox to an addict. That was always looking to escape the pain of life, of living. I tried to commit suicide multiple times. And then the realization of I was going to hurt more people by doing it than it was going to help me took the option away. That's not who I am. It's not how I am. I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to be hurt. Really simple. So I hope this conversation is going well. It's always good. It's always fun to talk to other people because then it feels like a conversation, and I'm not just sitting here as an authoritarian preaching things, because that's not what I like to do. Um, I guess I do like to do it because I'm doing it, but even in conversations, I like the back and forth of other concepts and ideas. How do we do this in a better way? To me, that's why enhancing your world is here. That's why I chose to do all this stuff and to create the things that we've created, was to create an opportunity so we could have a better tomorrow. So I'm not stuck in a job, dead end job, just trying to make it paycheck to paycheck. Because most people, if they weren't living paycheck to paycheck, wouldn't be doing what they're doing for a living. And the only reason they're not going to leave that job and be treated the way they're treated and all the different things is because they're in fear of losing that income. Now, if you have people in your corner that can help be a bridge for you to go through that transition, it makes it easier. Hey, buddy, I know you're going through a hard time financially. I got an extra couple $100 here. Let me float that to you. I know what it's like, and I can help. So let me help because it's going to make me feel good. Isn't that within our human nature? And most of us don't want to receive these days because people who offered the help then later on weaponized that help and then used it against us in some way because they expected us to zig and we zagged. And maybe because of our conditioning of, well, if my boss gave me money, then I got to do what he tells me to do. So I gave you money. So now I'm the boss of you till you give it back. I don't know what that concept is. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. And we've really had, you and I have had a lot of conversations about, relating and overcoming ourselves and each other and how to work together. And so I'm grateful for all the attention that we've spent building a relationship together, however it works out. And that's what I've learned. No matter how long I walk with somebody, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be with them, to go through the things. And if it doesn't work out because it's out of alignment and there isn't the desire to find a way to realign mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually, whatever, then the time has come that the river is split and the streams are going to go different ways. That's okay. Actually, it's beautiful. Because when we walk away from one another without residue, because there's no harsh feelings, that's that's amazing. That's a very fulfilling relationship. Of course, you still grieve that, you know, things didn't work out or however your process is. Again, learning how to relate. If every moment, if everything is unique as its energy expressed, the only way that it stays the same is by the way that we relate to it. The way we think about it, the way we feel about it. I remember being a mindset coach and asking people how to differentiate excitement versus anxiety or enthusiasm and fear. I was talking to my son about that the other day. about going on a roller coaster. I said, when you're standing in line, do you feel excitement or fear? And he said, both. And I said, perfect. And of course, then the continued conversation was, and we hope they're and trust that they're maintaining it properly, and we're going to have a fun experience because many other people have had fun experiences or gone through the experience and they've been okay. So, yeah, we're standing in line to be scared, to be excited, to feel things that aren't normal when we go to an amusement park, when we ride a roller coaster, when we do plant medicine, when we are in a relationship with one another. That's when we're out picking up trash on the edge of the fucking river. How are you relating why you do what you do? Of course, our relationship's always going to get better. The longer it goes, the better and better we get, right? Because we get better and better every day in every way. Because that's our focus. And thank you for that confirmation, Mark. Love you, buddy. And I mean, it's just amazing. I know there's so many people that want to talk about this kind of stuff and want to have these type of relationships and experiences, and then when they show up, they don't appreciate them, and so then they turn into something else. Because don't you want to be appreciated? Of course you do. So why would never anyone else be the same? I had a practitioner once. We were talking about our time, and I said, as a practitioner, do you like to get paid for your time when you show up and you do your job as a practitioner? She said, yeah. I said, well, then why wouldn't I be any different? I might not make a big deal out of it because there's more important things to me in life than being financially compensated. But I have to pay rent too. Actually, I don't pay rent for my life. I pay rent so everybody else can take advantage of this wellness center. And I have access to serve in new ways and different people than I did at my retreat center. So I chose to take on more responsibility to open the door and portals for other people to step in so they can live the life that they want to live. I'm not a hero. I just saw an opportunity and I was privileged enough to be able to step up into it. My heart's resilient enough to take it. My mind's sharp enough to redesign it as necessary, to go with the flow, to change circumstances. Isn't that what it means to be sovereign? Isn't that what it means to be present, to be conscious, to be able to shift into a higher state of being or higher perspective when given new reason and logic to do so? So why are we destroying each other? Why are we destroying our mother that births all life on this planet? I'm very grateful for Pacha's mama's example of unconditional love, because without her resources, we would not be able to live here. And yet we treat her with such I'm gonna pull that psychic dagger back. So that's not what I want to be projecting out there. So I'm going to wrap up the show here. Um, I feel complete. And the call to action this week is really take the time to look at how you've related to yourself and each other. You know, if you need help, need a kind ear, want to move past that place where you feel stagnant, stuck, you want to release that stress and that victim mentality, we're here for you at enhancingyourworld.com. Our retreat center and wellness center here in Northern Kentucky, and of course, all of our virtual online offerings and community, where we can come together in a safe place and be human and share ourselves openly and vulnerable. Where we will protect you. We will stand with you. We will unite with you. You're not alone. Love you guys. Thank you for the opportunity to serve the way I get to serve. Thank you for the opportunity to be me and do these things. And so grateful. I appreciate each and every one of you. My hope is to get to know you better, always. Yeah, till next week. Larkin will be on. We're going to be shooting. I guess I'll just throw this out there to publicly hold ourselves accountable. We'll be doing a live, and then we're going to do another YouTube video each week to help with the teachings and the things and the creating the spaces and trying to be a part of the static noise, but being a calm place amongst the storm. So, and until next week, much love, much gratitude for everything that you are, everything that you do, and everything you consciously choose to be. This planet would not be the same without it. Thank you for you. Until next week. Ona.